Hey, it's been a while. It's Neil Whitman, back again, the old soldier, and it's been quite a few months since I've posted anything on here, but I still have some folks that are after me to add to this library of Neil's little thoughts, and I'm not sure if I have much great to contribute to the dialogue on meaning and whatnot. It's interesting. I started this channel mainly to try and reach out to some veteran friends that I felt were missing what they needed in the mental health organizations that try to offer some kind of an answer to the mental suffering and anguish of guilt that comes from combat and um, really just experiencing terrible things and being powerless to do anything about it. And I think without the government maybe wanting our mental health organizations to acknowledge it, the tremendous feelings of betrayal that come from serving a government that is not intrinsically good. And it's difficult, because psychology doesn't really have answers for mental anguish that is derived from guilt and powerlessness. All it can really do is try and teach you ways to feel powerful by doing something in this world, some mechanisms or methods to cope with anxiety and stress overload, whether it's breathing or exercise or various mental exercises that are in themselves helpful to get through those things, but they don't really do anything to help the root problem. And it was my thought that perhaps I might be able to offer the thing that has got me through, and that thing which is not, it's not a method, it's not a trick on the mind, and it's certainly not a chemical neutralization of my emotions. It's the truth that I have found in Christ. There's a thing that fascinatingly everyone is terrified of. And I I actually find it quite funny, uh, maybe in a dark humor kind of way, how people are horrified of the thought of exploring Christianity. I have some friends who had expressed interest in it, and then all of their circle of companions and family kind of shocked and dismayed that anyone would even consider looking at this thing which has been the source of the greatest stability and good in the world in the last 2 millennia, even though in its abuse it has been used for evil. And they see any sort of return to that as terrifying and terrible. Well, I I can't stand on anything else. This truth that God is sovereign over my life and over your life and over this world, as messed up and broken as it is. And I know we're going into our third year of COVID winters here, or our third COVID winter anyway, and all of the misery that is associated with, all of the canceled surgeries, all of the depression, all of the isolation, all of the anxiety. Nevertheless, my God is much bigger than this. And, in spite of being alarmed in some sense for our personal prosperities and freedoms, I can read the writing on the wall as well as anyone and see that the road that we are on in the West and really across the world is one of totalitarianism. It doesn't necessarily mean we'll end up there because lots of things can happen, but that's where we're headed. And the scapegoating of people who don't participate in the group fear and get vaccinated is a way of, it's a classical way to divert from the seizure of power and the removal of individual freedoms. And I'm not even saying, by the way, like, this virus is seemingly very real. I don't dispute that at all. The mortality rate is no Black Death here or anything, but the virus is very real, and people are really dying of it. Um, it's something that we need to take seriously, and so that doesn't necessarily mean, though, that it isn't being abused by governments who are seizing power. I mean, it is worth noting that my own government here in Canada has recently passed a law that would, in 30 days, I believe, make it possible to prosecute as a criminal offense anyone who tries to counsel someone who comes to them asking how to live with same-sex attraction without acting on it, that even trying to help that person who wants to not act on same-sex attraction is subject to 5 years imprisonment. And I mean, yeah, that kind of thing is probably not good. It's the law's even broad enough that it's been said by lawyers, which I'm not, that it's sufficient to charge a parent who suggests to a tomboy daughter whose school counselor recommends gender conversion, that if both parents don't support the chemical castration of their daughter, that is a criminal offense. This is some pretty bad stuff. We're walking into some uh, dark new territory for the last, well, I don't know, since maybe the Roman Empire became Christian, as far as the West is concerned. Although we've oppressed each other in all kinds of different ways in the meantime. But nevertheless, what I am saying is that God is real. God is sovereign. This world is not just flying off and out of his control. People are wicked. This is a truth that needs to be understood. And when you understand that people are wicked, and yet there is a kingdom which is not of this world, which you yourself are able to be a part of, it is a tremendously freeing thing to walk away from your attempts to conquer this world, save yourself, which you simply can't do. We're mortal beings. We're limited beings. We lack the means to save ourselves from death. No matter what happens in your life, you are going to suffer injustice. You're going to be a victim. You're going to suffer ailments and illnesses and injuries that are going to hurt, and they will accumulate. You know, I am involved in a number of different communities, real ones and those that are in the online world. And I so often encounter young men who are utterly convinced that if they just eat right and work out lots, that they will conquer the world. They will conquer themselves and the world, and everything will be good. But the simple fact is, guys, like, talking as a man who was a physical fitness trainer, and one of the, I think most would agree, better runners and generally fit people in my battalion as a young man, you beat your body up over time, and it eventually is going to start failing you. You will not take the right dietary course and do all the right exercises and be an 80-year-old man who is deadlifting 500 pounds. Like, the crippling's coming, and you're not going to be able to stop it. And death is coming, and you can't stop it. And it's necessary to understand that you are a victim. I am a victim, and you are a victim. And that's something that can be tremendously destructive to pretty much everything if we accept that as our identity in a wrong way. But nevertheless, it's a truth. You are a victim. You're a victim of other people's evil. You're a victim of your own evil and the consequences of your own wrong actions. You have broken many relationships or hurt them, wounded them. You have hurt yourself. You have caused damage to yourself. You've caused damage to your own spiritual and mental well-being by doing things which are intrinsically destructive to yourself, and you will continue to do so. And you are going to be a victim of suffering in this life. That is a fact. And I was recently talking with a friend on this matter who had kind of, let's say, come to the end of his own strength in dealing with that reality. And ultimately, he sat down and said, I hate the thought of being a victim. I don't want to be a victim. I don't want to let myself be defined by other people's or even my own failures, but I need to push forward. But I don't have the strength anymore. Yeah. Like, you don't. And the reason that you don't is because there is no meaning to your suffering. There is this very wrong attitude about suffering which has pervaded a certain realm of the whole Petersonian meaning crisis folks that are striving to break past the world and its constraints on them and their own past failures, that suffering is somehow meaningful. Well, suffering is only meaningful if suffering teaches you something, right? Like, if I grab you and stick you in a cage and start driving red-hot pokers into your flesh and pull your teeth and fingernails out, stick electrodes to your private parts and shock you and then slowly cook you until you die, I guarantee that there is nothing intrinsically good about that experience for you. Nevertheless, if you have a reason to suffer, it suddenly becomes something different entirely. If you have a reason to suffer, then your suffering is not simply a torment, it is an exercise. It's like the difference between slowly sticking a knife through your thigh just to show that you can endure the pain, and doing squats that make it feel like knives are sticking into your thighs because you're pushing to a new personal record in your strength. And that strength is actually going to be used for something, It has a purpose. It's going to give you strength in the world to have an effect in the world that you want to have, right? Well, this adventure that I would invite you to embark is to have the ability to take all suffering and put it to a purpose when you join it to faith in the living God who saw fit to send his own Son into the world to suffer in order to redeem us. See, he didn't suffer for no purpose. He suffered so that he could make sons and daughters for himself, that's actually correct, all three persons, out of enemies like you and me. And then if you accept that and you come willing to actually hear God speak, you will find a place inside of a kingdom that is not of this world, that is not threatened by any of these things which are happening, because it will not fail and it won't fade, and it will be here when Christ comes again to judge the living and the dead. And if COVID kills everybody because it mutates into some sort of abomination, then no biggie, because it's not going to kill everybody, and we know that, and some people will survive. But if it's the Black Death, then the kingdom you're belonging to in God will continue. And if the government is simply using this as some means in order which to make your life horrible in some tyrannical, overlord-driven monstrosity, then that's all good too. It's gonna suck, and it's gonna hurt, and my recording is gonna crash, but I'll sew it back together later. But this government, this one government conspiracy, the elites, whatever may or may not be happening, is not going to defeat the kingdom of God. The church is going to continue, and the true church will survive right to the end. And even if we get in the gulags and have to endure that, then that's still all good. I can genuinely say that there is no anxiety in it. There's a freedom from anxiety. There is not a freedom from the responsibility to the world to try and bring light to the world and call people out of darkness, but to recognize the real problem is not the kind of government that we have. The fact is, unless people are driven towards what is good, there is no good government. It's not democracy, it's not communism, socialism, monarchism, despotism that is going to change whether or not people suffer. Democracy, when people don't love what is good, it's like the most terrible thing imaginable. That's majority rule. That's destruction of anyone who is alien. It's not going to be good, right? So I don't put my hope in this world, but that doesn't mean I have no hope for this world or no help for this world. But the help is to be able to escape from its confusion and its meaningless suffering into the meaningfulness of being joined to that kingdom through the suffering servant who died for you, and because of that, being enabled to stand up to any sort of worldly difficulty, past failure, and to know what it is to be forgiven, to know what it is to have a purpose. And the scripture that we have received says that as a Christian, to suffer under an unjust master is service to God. You see, as a Christian, if you are tortured and even killed, when you have that done to you, you are a victim, right? Just like I was saying, we're all victims. But you're a victim who is actually the master of that situation. You are enabled to turn that suffering from the sticking of the knife through your flesh to the power squats, because you're enduring it for a purpose. You are making the name of God great in your suffering by suffering with joy. You have a reason to suffer. You have a reason to suffer well. And it's a fundamentally different experience. I have watched people who are Christians go to death in suffering, in pain from sickness, cancer, and be filled with joy and just be filled with hope. It's not a suffering without purpose. It's an opportunity to continue to have an impact on others and to share truth with them, and then to go and be free from that suffering, not like a suicide victim who is a victim. They're a victim of their own suicide. And that person who's trying to escape suffering and to end themselves, they're enduring suffering until the end comes to them, according to God's will, and they can enter into the hoped-for reward of eternity, knowing that they have run the race well to the end. That's the picture of the Christian life, is the endurance race. It's pushing through your limits. It's enduring trials for the sake of the holy God, that is worthy. And for the sake of those around you. That's what it is to do it for the sake of God. It's to love others by loving God and doing what's right, no matter what it costs. Look, there is no other hope. And if this world is tearing you down and ripping your guts out and throwing them on the floor, and you're walking around with your entrails tangled up around your feet in dismay because you don't see a way out, don't take a way out. Take a way into making this meaningful. And gather your guts back up, put them inside, let God heal them, and then go forward with purpose. There is no need for a meaning crisis. This idea that Vervaeke has put forward, that Christianity is no longer sufficient to give that meaning, is utter nonsense. It is absolutely sufficient. I have seen it to be sufficient. I have seen people who had no purpose and meaning, who were drowning themselves in destruction and self-despair, find absolute freedom from those things. And not freedom from suffering and trials, but meaningful suffering and trials. So yeah, I'm going to come back. I'm going to look forward to putting some more videos out in the future. I suspect that I will answer the request to get on to looking at ancient masculinity videos again. I might take a bit of a different approach, and perhaps in a reboot go back to the beginning and just kind of work our way through some of the key figures in the Bible and see what they represent for us, what lessons they show to us about who we are and how we ought to see ourselves in the world and God, and subject ourselves rightly to that which can save us and give us purpose and meaning. So yeah, throw anything in the bottom in terms of response to this crazy rant, but I'd be eager to hear if you have any particular ideas or thoughts or questions that you'd like to have answered about anything that I just said. So it's good to be back on here in my now insulated shed, which is still a work in progress, and the paneling will go up sooner or later. But I look forward to having a conversation again in the future. Godspeed.